Fair warning, some of these answers are going to get personal, like really personal. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, welcome! Now, today's video is going to be a little bit different from my usual fragrance content because we are getting into some real talk. I recently put out a post here on YouTube and also on Instagram asking you to send me your nosy questions. And honestly, I was absolutely overwhelmed by how many of you responded, and it just filled my heart. So, first of all, thank you, genuinely. This community is just something special to me. So, some of these questions are about fragrances, yes, but some of you went there. I mean, really, really went there. We are talking about love life, we are talking about the not so glamorous side of being a content creator, and yes, I will be also spilling some tea along the way. So just grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Okay, so there were a couple of personal questions about my origin, where and when I was born, and how I ended up in the Netherlands. So, I was born in 87 in the capital of Hungary, which is Budapest. This makes me then already 39 years old, and I pretty much spent my first 31 years in Hungary. I have two sisters who are much older than me, like almost 20 years older than me. So technically, I was raised like a single child of the family. My mom and my sisters still live in Hungary, so I like visiting them multiple times a year. Then, the question how I ended up in the Netherlands. And honestly, I have been thinking how to answer this question since I saw it popping up. Because alone answering this question could take up like a 40 minutes long video. And yeah, I'm not sure if you want to hear it, but it is quite an interesting history, I have to say. But hey, I will not hold back. I will try to give you still, let's say, the short/medium length story. So the story starts a little bit earlier. You have to know that until age 27, I have always been in relatively long relationships. But then after a big breakup of I think 6 years long relationship, once I recovered, I really started to long for that big bad love. You know, when you feel that you are in a romantic comedy. Big feelings, big heartbreaks, something huge that just takes your breath away. Well, I usually also say that be careful what you wish for. That big bad love, or let's rather call it as a crush, came when I became 30. I got promoted at work at that time and I started leading an international project where I got a counterpart project manager from the vendor side. Handsome dark guy in a white shirt with a charming smile. And the rest, well, you can guess. Eventually, I managed to keep things professional, but every day in the office became an episode of Bridget Jones' Diaries. Then, after a few months, things started also changing at work and unfortunately into a negative direction. And really, I felt that maybe it's time to leave the company. So, this handsome project manager eventually dropped the $1 million question if he could refer me to his employer in the Netherlands. But hey, the story doesn't end here with a happy end, so wait for it. So he referred me to his manager. But honestly, I think this moment was also more. It was also a kind of turning point for me, because I felt for the first time that this crush maybe can be more. So we were already multiple times just millimeters away to share a kiss or something to happen, but I really always kept it professional. Okay, sometimes because I was like a scared bunny, sometimes because I was really focused on work, but again, nothing happened for good. So I applied for the job, but then I did not get it. But by that time, I also knew that I wanted to go. I really felt that I had to go. Like whatever happens, I have to move to the Netherlands. So I opened up LinkedIn and I found a position at an international company. And lucky me, I also saw that a former colleague of mine was already working there. So I asked my dear friend Andy if the company was a good employer and if he wanted to refer me. And then he said yes and yes. So eventually he referred me and I got the job and I ended up in the Netherlands. Now, you will ask me what happened to the guy or with the guy. Nothing. We met a few times when I moved here, and eventually, after a while, we stopped talking. But yeah, the amount of tears I cried over him, yeah, but again, it was for good. And I do believe that he was just a reason to start a new life. That's something that pushed me over the edge. And I will always be grateful for him for this. And I only remember the good things. And honestly, I really appreciate everything that I experienced and learned via this journey. So, yeah, this was, let's say, the medium length version of the story. But then let's move on to some questions about my boyfriend. So, how we met and who he is. So, his name is Mike. He is Dutch, and we met at a festival 7 years ago. I really love trance music, so eventually moving to the Netherlands was a quite good pick, as it is technically the European headquarters of electronic and trance music. So it happened exactly on my 32nd birthday, and hey, still remember that we are in a rom-com, right? So I decided to go to a festival alone on my birthday, just because one of my favorite DJs were playing. It was Gareth Emery, by the way. So by this time, I stopped talking to the gentleman of the previous story, just so that you know. While I was traveling to the other part of the country to this festival, I remember sitting on the bus and having again one of those life changing moments. And I realized that I'm done crying over that guy. And I'm also done with that big bad love or big bad love stories. I wanted something simple, something that works. I just, wanted to settle down. If you like, I kind of sent a wish to the universe to bring change. And I also knew, on the other hand, that that day was going to be the test. If he, the other guy, messages me for my birthday, then I will see how I feel about him. But then, let's just fast forward. I'm standing in the queue to enter the festival. It had a huge, very, very long queue. So I decided to skip the line for a few meters. Hey, I was a girl alone, so I thought that, okay, maybe if I look around and find a group of guys, then I can stand somewhere next to them. And I was hoping that they will not mind that I skip the line, right? So I saw that group of guys, I looked at them, and there was Mike. And looking at him, I even told myself that, nah, this one seems to be cute, so something like this could even work. But hey, nothing happened, it was just a sudden thought. I entered the festival still alone and started just enjoying the music. Then I got the message of the previous love interest as expected, and luckily I did not feel anything. I was really done. So I remember 2 minutes after this, a guy came to me asking if I wanted to join their group. He seemed to be pretty harmless, so I joined them. And guess what? This was Mike's best friend, who eventually invited me over, as I later learned, because Mike was too shy to start a conversation with me. And of course, this way it was easier for him to start talking to me. So we had a blast at the party, and we are technically together since then. You know, he is the one who often reads my mind, finishes my sentences, and everything has been just easy with him. So, yeah, I guess the universe has listened to my wishes after all. Then there was one more personal question about kids and pets. So we only have two furry babies, Loki and Freya. Loki is becoming 6 years old and he is an orange Siberian cat. You have already seen him in some posts in the past. And then Freya is 5.5 years old and she's a ragdoll. And basically, if you hear very sad meows in the background, then usually that's her. Yeah, so I hope I did not bore you with these small stories, but hey, you asked for it, right? But now let's talk perfume. So, lots of questions about my fragrances. How many I have, how I store them, how I got into perfumes. So, I have always loved fragrances and beauty. I have always had like 3 or 4 perfumes at once. But the things started becoming a little bit more serious around the COVID lockdown, as for most of us. I started consuming more social media, including perfume content. So basically, I started collecting perfumes around 2020, 21, and I have to admit that my collection exploded around that time. Currently, I have more than 400 bottles. And honestly, I stopped counting after that. I have already tried to declutter and downsize it, but honestly, I am really having a hard time to let many of them go. You know, you may have some special memories with them, or they are discontinued or hard to find. So I guess I always have some reasons not to declutter. I know that it is not normal, but hey, I trust you with all of my confessions here. So please be gentle. Also, it may sound as a stupid argument to you, but I also consider myself as a collector, but not necessarily a curator. But it's like having a scent library with a large variety. Yeah, it is still large and it is not something that I endorse you by any means, but yeah, this is me. I have a lot of designer and niche perfumes, mainly in the fruity floral category. I always say that I don't really have a signature scent profile. I have multiple fragrance personalities based on the mood, the season, or the occasion. But I enjoy fruity floral, rather sweet and strong perfumes most of the time. Then, my most expensive blind buy. I think it was either Valaya exclusive, but eventually I already knew that I loved that scent profile, or Athene Ice, which finally arrived here as well. Uh, there she is. So I consider both of them as a quite safe blind buy for me because I knew what I was buying into. Most likely, you will hear about this beauty in the next April roundup. So, how I store them? So, I store them in my beauty room, which is also my filming space. The room is dark most of the time and it is the coolest part of the house. I have 3 vitrine closets behind the camera and some cabinets where I also display the perfumes. I will try to insert some pictures, but this room is also quite often messy, so yeah. be gentle again. Then there was one question about insurance, and I found it very interesting to ask about it. But technically, I do have an insurance, as we have insured basically all goods inside the house when we moved here. So I guess we are covered. Then a question about what people, and especially my boyfriend, thinks of my crazy hobby. So my boyfriend is not into perfumes, but he accepts it. Eventually, he has his own man cave, that kind of gaming room with a PlayStation and gamer PC. So he has his own hobby, his own obsession, and I have mine. We have a rule, which is that as long as we are sharing the household costs, we are okay and we have our own money and we can enjoy what we want. By the way, before I forget, Mike said that if I ever reach 10,000 subscribers, he will come and join me on camera. So if you want to see him, share the channel with your friends who might be also interested. But let's move on to the questions about budget and also reselling perfumes. And yeah, honestly, I am not good at these kind of things. I often just gift away the perfumes that I declutter, if I declutter. Here in the Netherlands, technically you are also not allowed to resell any opened cosmetic products, and it also applies to perfumes. And I have tried to resell some bottles in the past, but I got even some warnings on Vinted multiple times. And to be honest, at some point it just became too much of a hassle. So I know that there are also some Facebook groups, and I am in fact part of them. And I tried to sell one or two perfumes recently. But yeah, honestly, I only feel comfortable reselling something when I have the box, or at least the bottle is in great condition and the perfume is not really used. So therefore, yeah, I do not really have an income from reselling any perfumes. Then you also asked about the monthly budget. It fluctuates. No, I don't have a strict budget. However, I know that I really should. So basically, sometimes it is a bit more, sometimes I slow down. But yeah, technically, I think I have been doing good for the last few weeks. The big designer releases luckily calmed down. So I hope that a couple of more quiet weeks will come. Then someone also asked me if I have ever chased down someone just because of their perfume and which perfume it was. I only remember one that I bought based on how it smelled on a friend of mine. And it was Armani because it's you. It was just a very beautiful summer perfume, fruity floral, and I really liked it. However, I have to retest it again, as last time when I wore it, it was slightly too tangy for me. But then, let's move into the YouTube stuff. So, why did I start my channel? Is the first one. So, I have always enjoyed watching fragrance content and also beauty content. And at some point, I just felt the urge to start sharing my opinions. Before this perfume channel, I used to be active on Instagram and I used to have a makeup channel or profile where I regularly posted about my looks. But I was too conscious about my face and skin and in general my looks to start a makeup channel on YouTube. So eventually, the turning point was where I think somewhere at the beginning of last year, I was talking to one of my colleagues, whom I also consider as a very good friend of mine, and she kept telling me that I can describe perfumes very well and I should really start a channel. So it took about 3 to 4 months to gather all my courage to film my first video. And of course, that video got never posted. I think I had about 5 or 6 takes until I felt that, okay, this is a shitty video, but at least it is watchable, or rather postable. Eventually you would not think, but sometimes it is just extremely hard to talk to a camera, unless you are a natural. But eventually it takes a lot of time to practice and also to get used to your own face and voice in a video. But I think also seeing yourself recorded also can really help to improve, for example, your presentation skills. So if you are thinking about starting a channel, my advice would be just start it. It is never too late. But be kind to yourself and have realistic expectations. You will have to practice a lot. You will have to be open to learn a lot of new things, for example, to improve the quality of your production. And I think this brings me to the last question, which was about what are the best and worst parts of being a YouTube fragrance content creator. So the best part is that, as I said, you can learn a lot of new things. You can learn how to use your camera, how to set up lights, how to edit a video. So in general, it is a great hobby as it is also teaching you some new skills, and I'm very much enjoying this part. As I said, it can also improve your presentation skills and how you speak. It can really help how to articulate, also how to structure your thoughts. So you can eventually only win with it. But then the dark side of YouTube and social media. You may have moments when no one watches you. You don't get the views, or sometimes you will get negative comments. I think you have to be okay with it. So there will be people who will not like you. I do remember one of the first comments. It says that I was just a beginner and basically it was not a good video. And honestly, it was not a good video. And I was also just a beginner. But yeah, the fact that this person commented, yeah, it hurt. But hey, it also boosted the engagement of my video. Because if you like or even dislike a video, it is engagement and it adds up. So yeah, besides that, I'm not as big of a content creator to be part of any big controversies or scandals, but I will share now 2 of my biggest unpopular opinions with you. Please do not unsubscribe because of them. So 1, I stopped watching very big creators as they are flooded with PR and they are not the same down-to-earth persons that they used to be before. They are not relatable anymore, they just want to sell everything, and this is not what I want to become. If I ever become like this, you can come over and kick my butt. 2, I hate when creators only use words like good, beautiful, sexy, intoxicating. Can we please just use some proper vocabulary? Don't just say that it is so good, tell me how it smells. Paint me a picture or describe the situation that comes into your mind. Yeah, I can read the notes, but you have to tell me how really the perfume smells to you. Whew, sorry, I became a bit too spicy towards the end, and also the camera cut me off. But I hope that you can relate to it. And I hope that my way of bringing you content will also appeal to you in the future as well. But now I'm going to close this video as it has been so long. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope I didn't disappoint you with my stories. If you would like to give feedback or you would like to share your own stories or opinions, then please do it down below in the comments. And until the next time, bye bye.